Hello there, this is Carlos, the overlord of the Showdown Battle League. We are bringing you the Week 4 SBL Power Rankings. Got a few coaches here today with me. I guess we'll start off with Sifra.
Hey everyone.
Then we got Noah
Hey guys, hopefully my mic registered that this time.
and Jack.
Yo,
Carlos, I like how you unironically refer to yourself as the Overlord still. It's
I
it's a good touch.
I got to honor the late great Corey.
Or he's
I,
dead?
Is he dead now?
he is in a better place. But starting off this video, we will go into the free agency transactions of Week 3 and Week 4. Pretty active week of transactions, including Ryan taking over Travis's team. But starting it off, our coach here, Carlos, dropped Meloetta, Lucario, Exploud for Yuxi, Volcanion, and Regice. Pretty interesting transaction there. I like it. I guess I can explain it a little bit. I wasn't really thrilled with those three Mons. Meloetta is nice, but a little bit of overlap with having Exploded Meloetta. And the points just worked out where I really wanted to grab Volcanion for some matchups. Water Absorb is nice, adds Defog. Yuxi, I needed more switch-ins, and then Regice is along the same lines. Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. I know, like, if you can get Volcanion under Sticky Web at some point from Slurpuff, thing's a monster. You don't switch into that unless you have like a Lottie. And Yuxi is a phenomenal support mon that I think works on a potential hyper offense build. So I like these transactions a lot.
Okay, and moving on, we have two sort of connected transactions. The first one is Travis and Erob made a trade of Cobalion for Florges, and then Erob dropped Cobalion and Mega Glade for Mega Altaria and Alakazam. Thoughts on the transactions?
First off, I think it's hilarious that Erob made the trade with Travis to just immediately drop the Pokemon he got. It was almost like a charity case, like hey, I'm dropping Florges anyways. Here, sure, you can have it. But going on to his transactions, I especially like him getting Altaria. I don't think he had a fairy, and that just gives him a really good. His team's kind of it tends towards the bulkier side, and I really like Altaria for him because it gives him an offensive threat with Dragon Dance, but it still has very viable defensive sets if he does want to go a little more stally or semi-stally in a given week. So I think that fits really well with this team.
Also, with that, good job, Jack, because this transaction was entirely because of you.
Yeah, we have
whoops.
we have an excerpt from him. I won't read it all, but he basically didn't see Florges coming to any of his matches upcoming, so he took it as an opportunity to make some transactions that he felt matched up well in his future matchups, especially versus Jack. But yeah, I think overall they're good transactions. It's sad to see Mega Glade go, but replacing with an equally good Mega is not too bad. Moving on to, I guess we can do both of Brian's transactions at once. He dropped Gigalith, Salazzle, Golisopod, and Decidueye for Talonflame, Tyrantrum, Breloom, and Tauros. Thoughts on the transactions? Yeah.
I know he's used Taros a lot, so he'll probably be good with that. And use Breloom in season 2. It's a mascot pick, and it's good for a offensive build because it can use Spore reliably. The Swords Dance a priority, so I think it fits his like offensive team really well.
Yeah, his team did get more offensive with these transactions, ditching Gigalith and Decidueye for some more offensive mons like Tyrantrum and Breloom that have the same, some of the same typing as them, so you can see kind of the direct swaps there. I think Talonflame's going to be interesting. Obviously, it's not as well loved as it was before the Gale Wings nerf, but it's still a really interesting Pokemon to use, and especially as a low tier, I think you could have fun with that one.
Yeah, overall I like the transactions. Not huge impact. They're the lower tier mons, but I think he the offense will definitely help his team. But yeah, moving on to our final transaction of the week, we have Ryan's transactions taking over Travis's team. He had the option of making 5 transactions, and he used all 5 of them, dropping Ninetales, Alola, Mega Blastoise, Kartana, Ninjask, and Xatu, picking up Mega Mawile, Cresselia, Noivern, Persian Alola, and Quagsire. Thoughts on the transactions?
Finally, Mega Mawile gets picked up in free agency out of all places.
Yeah, it's the biggest takeaway here. Yeah, Ryan took a team that was kind of on the fence on what it wanted to do. It had elements of hyper offense. It had elements of bulky, almost stally offense, and he took that and really took it in the semi-stall direction with the pickups like Cresselia and Quagsire, especially. And Cress plus Heatran Bulu is going to be a pretty cool defensive core that has some offensive capabilities with it, and I think that could take him a pretty good way.
Yeah, definitely some pretty powerful transactions. Uh, he still has a little bit of overlap with having 3 fairy types, but 2 of them being Bulu and Mega Mawile makes it not much of a problem with them being such amazing Pokemon. And Heatran can definitely help balance that out. A really nice core. Yeah, and as someone who's used Cresselia extensively in the past, I absolutely love that move. Any final thoughts on any of the transactions?
Oh, I think we skipped over Brandon actually.
Oh, you right. Brandon dropped Mega Charizard and Breloom for Chansey and Togekiss. Definitely in the same vein of what Ryan did. He is getting much bulkier. Chansey is a very annoying Pokemon. Not a big fan of him losing Mega Charizard, but if he wants to go for a more bulky team, uh, I think it will work out for him.
Yeah, I really felt like
I
the
wasn't a
second.
huge fan, just because his identity of his team seemed like set up for Charizard and for that to win.
That's
But
exactly what I was saying.
but I mean, if you're going in the Stolly direction with Chansey, it could be pretty cool. Run like offense in the league, so that could be tough. But I'll be against some bulkier teams. It does look like he's really tough to break now.
And I guess that will wrap it up for the transactions in these 2 weeks, and we will move straight into our power rankings. Starting off at the bottom, it looks like generally we have Travis slash Ryan. Ryan, who took over Travis's team, has inherited an 0-4 team, minus 19. Not a lot of prospects there record wise, but I think with his moves, he can definitely start moving up and hopefully taking out Noah in playoffs. But rough start here.
Yeah, it was a rough 2 week stretch for that team, putting up a minus 12 differential across 2 weeks.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot to see with those matches. They were pretty, especially the Necrozma one, which
Mm-hmm.
was we'll address more when we get to that. But it was a pretty unfortunate leading with Bulu and then instantly getting swept. There wasn't much he could do there. Yeah. Other coaches in this bottom range, it looks like Lauren, Brandon, Kevin, Tony. What do you think about those coaches this 2 weeks?
I'll say a quick comment. Just on Ryan, I'm cautiously optimistic because Ryan's a good coach that he can turn the team around.
Mm-hmm.
But his first matchup, week 5, is against Erob, which I think is going to be a really challenging way to start the team. And Lauren's the other 0-4 coach. I think I had her ranked 15 because you still need to get that first win.
I was pretty impressed with Lauren this week too. I mean, overall, even though she does have that 0-4 record, she admittedly had a very tough schedule.
Yeah, and she got some close matches and some people that are relatively higher up on the power ranking.
I mean, she was a Stone Edge crit away from being real trouble for you, which is it's a high crit move. So, with Carlos, real close too. So, I mean, overall, sometimes it's just when you have a league with these like how awesome everyone is now, it's going to be tough, and sometimes you just get unlucky. But I was pretty impressed with Lauren these last couple weeks.
Yeah, like versus me, even it ended up being a 6-0, but it only happened because she clicked superpower instead of knockoff on the Switch, and it just gave me the opportunity to set up with Slurpuff when I didn't even intend to do that in that moment. So sometimes stuff happens and you get 6-0'd instead of it being a close game. But yeah, overall, she's definitely hasn't looked as awful as her record says. So hopefully she can get some nice upset wins up here in the next few weeks. But I'd have to say for the next, let's go with, I say Brandon next. It was definitely another coach who had a rough 2 weeks. The week 4 match wasn't too much of a blowout. It was the week 3 one where there was just nothing he could do versus E-Rob's sub Hydreigon shenanigans.
That was a really cool bring home. Massive props to E-Rob for that, but it definitely ripped apart Brandon's team that game.
Yeah, that was. I mean, Alola is such a mon that you have to be so careful with using, and if you're not wary, something really cool like that could potentially. Well, the one thing that I kind of wanted to see against me, because that was a really close match. I honestly don't know what the results would have been. He may have actually had a chance to stall me out, believe it or not, like even a sleep talk set with Zapdos if he didn't sack it on my Weavile. I think that it would have been a really cool thing to try. I mean, it's really tough when you're in that situation, but and it's like especially when you're like further in a match, just seeing win. But I would have liked to see him try to do that.
I guess this goes to the transactions bit, but I'm a bit surprised that after the way he lost to E-Rob, he looks to sort of make his team even more bulky. Because it looks like one of the problems was that his bulky team advantage of. But he also has I think one of any coach, so he's had that going against him.
Moving on to I guess Kevin. Hasn't been a very good start to the season for him. After being one of the higher ranked drafts. He only battled week 3, which was actually a pretty close match, and he ended up forfeiting week 4 to Dennis. For me, when it comes to him, I think I'd just like to see him. I don't know what it is that's wrong for him this season because he has a very solid roster, but I think he just needs to. I don't know. In the first 2 weeks, especially against me, it felt like he didn't have as good as a team built together for the match. I think it could be maybe he needs to put in a little bit more effort in prep on the prep side, or I don't know. But he did play Robert really close, who is high up on our rankings, so that is something positive to look for in these 2 weeks.
Yeah, the one thing about Kevin is that he's got a team very similar to the one that I used last season. And like Celesteela, for example, it's a phenomenal mon, and it's just you've got to use it in such like a specific way in each game. So like the one thing I noticed against Robert is he had a leech seed. He wanted to get a leech seed up against Milotic and then autotomize, but it didn't really look like he had a plan. Like once he autotomized, and he just kind of let his Celesteela get whittled down for nothing. So I would like to see him maybe use that a little more because when it's used right, it's such a phenomenal mon, and once he kind of gets used to using that in like draft format, I think he could be pretty good.
I think another big thing about Kevin in particular is he has he's done really well in the past. Like he's been able to make finals multiple times, but I think sometimes with his schedule, he's not able to put in as much effort as he can. Like he's really good when he has the time, but I think maybe hasn't had as much recently since the beginning of the season.
Moving on, I guess, to Tony, it looks like. Definitely a really rough first 3 weeks. He had a really nice close game versus Gayton, and then a really impressive win versus Travis with that Necrozma set. Uh, just leading off with it and getting the Bulu matchup to start just meant he just won right there. There was nothing that Travis could really do. If he stayed in with Bulu, he lost because Woodhammer didn't do enough, and it was just a great bringing Grassy Seed like that.
Yeah, just a nasty sword power sweep right off the bat. That was almost a tough game to watch because of how instantaneously it ended.
I think Tony got a bit of a lucky break because Travis didn't have any like I guess like panic button options, like nothing had toxic or like whirlwind or roar taunt, like one of those moves. Um and the set like sort of like everything worked at the right spot in the right time. Like he led Necrozma and he led Bulu and he got the boost immediately. But that is a really, really unique way to use Necrozma, which so props to him for that.
And what this is going to do, like in the long term, is that you're almost going to be forced that you have to bring a dark type against Tony now, and just because of Necrozma, either something with toxic, some kind of eject button, or not that's a fun item, but some kind of thing to get it out. Something like this, as far as influencing prep going forward, I think is a really phenomenal win because one, he got that 6-0, and two, he's going to be like changing people's prep in the long run going against him.
Next up in the power rankings, roughly we have Brian and Dennis, pretty around the same spot. What do you guys think about their 2 weeks? I guess to start it off, they actually both faced in week 3. It was a very interesting matchup. Brian managed to pull out the W there. And overall, we haven't seen a lot from Dennis, having 2 matches to forfeits already. But he definitely has still an insane team, and I can imagine he'll definitely bounce back. When it comes to Brian, though, I'm a little more worried about his situation. Um, he's 1-3, obviously. Some all pretty close matches because he only has the -3 differential. But it's still a little worrying that in such a tough conference he's behind early on. Caw.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say about Brian, especially just because he has traditionally been one of the stronger coaches in the league. So there's that part of me that's sure he'll turn it around. But it's not a great start.
Yeah, and same goes for Dennis. He's been a great coach the last couple of seasons, but evaluate someone and like to analyze their battling when they're technically only 1-1 games they've actually played through week 4.
It's hard to rank them, but at least 2-2 is still a good spot. I think Dennis is 2-2, I believe.
Yeah.
That's still a good spot to be in for playoff contention, though. So, I mean, like he still might be good in the long term.
Just gotta watch out with players like Robert continuing his hot streak.
Yeah.
Definitely will be a tight playoff race this year in both conferences. But I guess moving on a little up, in one of the more split sections of this list, I guess we can go on to me. And yeah, we'll go into me. Pretty close to week 3. Who did I face again? Yeah, it
That was Jared.
Oh gosh,
That was
that's a match to forget right there.
Yeah, Carlos. It wasn't immediately obvious at the time, but he sent out the wrong mon at the very end when it was looking like he was just going to clean up. And if he'd just gone with the other one, just coincidentally, it would have likely gone in his favor. So that's just a tough one.
Yeah, when I was thinking back to the battle, I swear that whole battle I was taking extra time because I've been working on trying to like really think of my moves more because that's been one of my problems in the past. But for whatever reason, I was like, okay, fire punch, I lose if I go for that. Whatever electric move I had, plasma fist, and then I didn't think about knockoff enough. And if I had just gone zero aura, that would have been a win versus a huge opponent. But that's what happens sometimes. It's hard to predict the Scarf Superior even when Jack mentions it before the battle.
Rip.
Rip. Yeah.
Carlos, I know you said you were working on it, so are we talking about practice, man? Not a game. Not a game.
Nah,
But,
just moments like that, I need to just think it out a little more, especially at the end of the battle where there's plenty of time just to sit and think about it. I mean, it's an important turn. No one's going to timer you for that. But
Yeah.
I was very.
You were bounded nicely against Lauren, though, with the opportune belly drum slurp off.
Yeah, that match I was definitely really nervous for because going down 1-3, being 0-2 in the division, that would have just been killer. But getting that win there brings me to 2-2, and I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. Definitely in comfort in knowing that if I just sent out the right Mon versus Jarrett and didn't get flinched versus Kevin, I could be 4-0. But it's how the ball bounces, I guess.
it was a really nice bounce back though against Lauren because especially you're in a really like tough pressure situation because your schedule after like is looking pretty daunting going forward. So it was really nice to see you bounce back with a big win.
Who are Carlos's upcoming opponents?
His next three are Robert, E-Rob, and Newt.
Ah,
Yeah, so it's gonna be it's definitely a stretch. I am not to let them know anything, but I'm already starting to get well prepared for those three coaches. So they better watch out. I
Not to
think
mention, even after that, his next three after that are Kevin, Sifra, and Jarrett. So
and Dennis and Robert again. So I mean, but to be fair, everyone has this where it's pretty much everyone's schedule is just brutal all the way through. So it's definitely gonna be tough. This match versus Robert, though, we'll probably talk about this more at the end, but whoever wins that match is gonna be in much a really good position to split away in their division. At least if Robert wins it, then that's pretty crushing for the lower part of the playoff race there.
I'm looking forward to that battle.
Me as well. But I guess moving on to the next part of the power rankings, we have split. Let's go on Erob and Newt since they actually did face in week 4.
It was such a good battle.
Yeah, that was definitely insane. For me, just to explain my rankings since they're a little different, I have Erob, Newt, and then me. I partly just for a confidence boost to put myself up. I feel like I've been a little more consistent through the season than the other two. Like I was saying before, I could be 4-0 against a quality opponent of like even if I just got the win versus Jarrett, that would put me at 3-1. I have Jarrett, spoiler alert, at number 2 in my rankings. So to be that close to beating someone up that high, I felt I have a good enough shot to be above two similar ranked coaches. But when it comes to Newton and Erob specifically, it really came down to me that Newt beat Erob in week 4. I think they're both outstanding coaches and have been really solid this season. And Erob especially has been a nice surprise, but just because of the win, I had to put him over him.
I was really impressed with Newt these last couple weeks because week 3 I beat him in an extremely close game that he very well could have won if he was Scarf Gardevoir, and he just happened to not be, so that was lucky for me. And then he followed that up with a really nice win over Erob. So like the whole thing we always talk about with Newt is that I know you like to say this too, Sifra, that like he doesn't make bad plays. He thinks about everything. He doesn't put himself in bad situations. And the way he preserved his Tangrowth for that Altaria late game, really fun to watch.
It's what we get with these coaches who draft the same roster every season. They get really comfortable with it and then just start. Eventually, it's going to break through. And with a team as annoying as his with the regenerator and all that, uh, he's always a threat. And honestly, he has a pretty solid stretch of games here where he can start to try and get up in the division. Whoa
And
there.
then
Yeah, really, Newt put together a good stretch of games this past 2 weeks against Noah and Erob. And then Erob, the other guy we're talking about right now, he had a pretty good stretch of games himself. He had the really good, was it a metronome Hydreigon as well?
Yeah.
that was
Yeah, the sub-metronome Hydreigon to break through the Alamomola and to kind of stall your team that Brandon had. And then it came down to the wire with Newt. So that was a pretty good one in and of himself. Erob shown himself to be a phenomenal builder, a phenomenal builder for sure.
phenomenal. Starts to sound like you're going to sing the Muppets on us.
I don't even know what that means, but
I'm not gonna sing it because I don't want to make anyone have to hear that.
Thank you.
I don't know. I think all 4 people that watch this video would enjoy it.
I mean, us four watching it back on the loop.
Big facts.
Watch
totally-
back on Lube Keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with Erob, just from what we've seen this season, even though he's 2-2, it can't take away from just how insane his prep's been. And if he continues prepping like he's been, there's no reason he won't make playoffs. Especially, he's actively making transactions to make his team better, get prepared for matchups he's worried about, like Jack. So I expect to see him well in the playoff race. But moving up a little bit, let's see. Let's go with Robert, who we've already talked about a little bit. He's definitely one of the more interesting coaches this season. Just confusing on where to put him. He's been really outstanding. Really, his only loss being against Jarrett, which was pretty close, and he has just been impressive following a deep playoff run last year. So really excited to see his matchups in this coming week to see if he can solidify himself.
Yeah, Robert's my highest riser in this week of rankings. I had him at the lower end of the 1-1 teams at the end of last season, and said I really wanted to see how he did against Kevin and Brian in this stretch, and he won both the games and has shown that he's for real in a competition. And his top 4 finish last year looks like it might be a sign of things to come.
Yeah, so like you can go, Jack.
Oh, okay. Thanks. He's using Howloo just so well. When he played Brian and he went for the sub and the drain punch when Brian was trying to predict a high jump kick,
Oh, it was so
which
nice.
is really smart.
That's so nice.
Which is really good prep on his part to know it's for the predictable counter. And I just think he's using Pokemon on his team really well. Like I like how he's been using Play Score especially.
Yeah, I mean, I know before the game started, we kind of were confused on what he wanted to do with his team. The way he kind of drafted Coco Lucha semi-stall, but then he used Beedrill so well, that offensive core to clean up against Kevin, and then Halucha so well against Brian, and the fact that his bulky core actually have been complementing his offense really nicely and putting them in a really good situation to sweep in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely a signature win versus Brian. That's where you really start to see contenders come out, and just really excited to see what he does with this team. Just I've been playing a little bit of OU and trying out Halucha Coca. It's just an insane combo that's brutal to face, and it's so fun to use. So I think if he continues on with this like he's doing, we'll see some really nice things from him. But moving on to roughly our top 5, we have Gayton. Pretty okay 2 weeks. Obviously, he's high up here. He's been using Landorus just very well. Starting off with the 11 kills in the first 3 weeks,
Yeah,
nearly on pace for 50 kills. But took a little bit of a step back week 4. But at 3-1, he's still nowhere near out of it.
I would say he is in it. In fact,
But
Yeah, I was again. I was pretty impressed with Gayton, like from the beginning. Wait, who did he play before Jack?
he had Newt, Brandon, and Tony for his first 3 games.
So he played a really nice game against Tony, and then Jack was incredibly close too. I mean, he was in that whole time. He played around Mew really, really well. The one thing I would have liked to see maybe is at the end of the game, try to give yourself a better chance by clicking Volt Switch with Jolteon instead of just sacking it. That probably only like changed differential a little bit, and Jack just put him in a really rough situation. But overall, that match was extremely close and could have gone either way. And I was really impressed with what I saw from him.
and I mean, his week 1 win against Newt is just looking more and more impressive as the weeks go on.
Mhm.
Speaking of his opponent Jack, who has made a steady climb up the rankings, a really nice win versus Gayton, as Noah was just mentioning, beating an opponent that you really need to in that conference to get back into things. It's really nice to see Jack taking form with this team he has, and with his only win being or only loss being against Noah. Uh, or was it Noah?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
no.
thought. Uh, Obviously we had to put him really high. So definitely this conference over here, the top 4 coaches, it's going to be or top 5 even. It's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. We have a lot of up and coming coaches and established coaches all performing at a really nice level.
No, it's pretty far away, like 4 weeks, but I'm really excited for my rematch against Erob. I just think it's going to be, especially now that he's made a bunch of transactions to his team, I think it's going to be a really exciting battle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
I think.
really
Go ahead.
I was really impressed with the way you used like Comfy, especially against like Salamence and everything, because Comfy's it's like it's so weak, and but that like that priority and having it as a safety valve for a team that to some kind of like set up dragons, I thought that was like used and preserved like really nicely, and it basically was the catalyst for the 6-0 win.
Yeah.
Also, oh, go
The
ahead.
one thing that I really like about how Jack's games have been is, at least in his 3 wins, I feel like he's really controlled the pace of the game how he wants to, and just kind of go whittle down. And if he doesn't completely just whittle them all the way down, he has something like Volcarona in the back to clean up the severely wounded team. And that's exactly what he wanted to do. So the fact that he's been able to stick to that game plan in his wins is impressive.
And I mean, it's really just nice to see him use Volcarona well, because a mon like that, that's 4 times weak to rocks, sometimes people will be scared of bringing it out just because mons like that require some support, but Jack used it absolutely fantastically in week 4. And I guess moving on to our top 2, or actually, can't forget about Sifra.
Yeah, hey.
Hey. Unfortunately, Sifra suffered his first career regular season loss this week, but it was not against a bad opponent whatsoever. Jarrett being very impressive these first few weeks, and it wasn't even. It was a really close game, so that was definitely nice to see.
Almost a little
Yeah.
axie.
Props to Jared. That was a really fun one.
Yeah, I guess we can just since this match really defines those couple spots up there. Jarrett was really impressive. I've loved his Starmie use this whole season, but especially in this match where he used the Water EMZ to completely catch Sifra's Crocodile off guard and really set a
Yeah,
tone for the match.
that was a really good turn for him. I definitely had it in my mind that uh, if it was a more offensive Starmie, I could threaten it with my Scarf Brook to the point that he'd be a little bit afraid of it. And if it was more defensive, then I'd be able to tank its Scald or whatever. But he hit me with the Hydra Vortex and knocked that out and took out probably the biggest threat I had to his team. And that was a really good catalyst for the win that he ended up having.
I love him bringing Laterium there because that's such a ballsy bring when you have a Gastrodon, especially when it comes. It's just like you could basically get your Z move just completely pointless. Nothing happened. Go ahead and waste it. Got that, and then he put himself in a perfect situation against a Scarf Duck because knockoff wouldn't be doing as much, and then Pursuit obviously wouldn't kill. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was such a phenomenal bring, and to like make sure he put himself in that situation was really cool to see.
And then just the fantastic use of Mega Pinsir, using it to clean up that match, and just overall the season it's been used very effectively. Another Pokemon like Volcarona, where with the 4x rock weakness it can be hard to utilize, but with that offensive power and using it to clean up, it's been great.
That was fun too. I had rock move on, I think, 5 of my 6 Pokemon for that game, and he still ended up cleaning up with his pincer.
Only thing to be careful of is when he plays. I don't know if he plays Ryan, but if he does, Ryan is the Mega Pincer killer, as we talked about earlier. So.
Oh, true.
One thing, one final thing about Jarrett that I really like is his mentality with a more offensive team like his was when he has a big threat in front of him, he just attacks it and he gets rid of it, which is why Waterium Z works so well, which is smart. Like if you don't have the bulk, you might as well just like take out the biggest threat to your team whenever you can. You always take that opportunity. I also really like how he used Stack Attacka because I think, especially with Trick Room, that thing has potential to be a really good late game win condition well to his more offensive build.
And I guess moving on to our final coach of this power rankings, who has held his #1 spot for consecutive videos, we have Noah. Not really surprising at 4-0 plus 15 that he has held his spot. Been a really impressive season with a team full of 4x weaknesses. He has managed to make it work very effectively. The Rain, the Weavile, the Gengar, it's just hard for opponents to deal with, and he's used it very effectively versus some strong coaches.
I guess I'll just say that it's been pretty cool to use this team. I've been seeing it is kind of hard to use Rain effectively every week. So I'm really happy I picked up the Weavile Gengar and can make it more like a standard draft team. Have fun with that, and I'm trying to make Jack proud and get Weavile MVP.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, Noah's been looking really strong in all of his games. It's fun. These next 2 weeks, he plays 2 other coaches that are currently in the top 5 of our power rankings. So it'll be a really good test to see if he can get through that and retain his top spot for another week.
Make that the next 3 weeks. He has Jared.
Next 3 weeks, yeah.
And then Erob isn't too far off, and then Newt. Definitely.
And then Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan, that's the real matchup. For those
who know Ryan in that dock just to make sure I saw it.
Definitely the rest of the season for Noah will be very key. He has a lot of insane matchups coming up, so that'll be really exciting to see. But yeah, I guess to close it off, any final thoughts on any of the teams or upcoming matches we haven't already addressed?
See, for Noah, week 6 is going to be great.
Yeah, that's definitely.
No, I'm excited for that one. I think Noah and I have a little bit of a rivalry going on, carrying over from being in the same division last season. That's going to be a fun one.
My man Joel Embiid. It's not a rivalry until you beat the other person. I don't think it's much of a rivalry yet.
It is sad to see that it's not two undefeated records going against each other, but it's still going to be an insane matchup.
I do apologize for that one.
Yeah.
Blame Jared on that, ruining the hype.
I'm looking forward to playing Kevin in week 6, just because we played at the end of week 7 or season 7, week 12, and if I beat him, I would have been gone into playoffs, but I lost. And he's actually beat me the last couple of times, and we've played like so many different times. So I'm looking forward to that.
For me, definitely excited to see most of Ryan's matches for the rest of the season. But even just starting off with these next 2 weeks, he has a good friend Erob he's facing, and then followed up with Robert. If he wants to have a chance to bring his team back into the win column or the positive side of things, he's definitely going to need some signature wins here in the next couple weeks. So that'll be interesting to see.
We talked about it a little bit earlier, especially with you, Carlos. The game against Robert. Forward to that because talk about like a big divisional game so early in the season. I mean, it can't get any bigger than this as far as position for the playoffs. And then we mentioned how hard your schedule was, so it's a really big game to try to get momentum moving forward.
Yeah, I think there are plenty of exciting matches these next 2 weeks. This week being a bunch of division battles, so we'll really start to see the rankings take shape. But with the 2 weeks in between each one, it will continuously be volatile. So definitely be exciting to see how this season goes. And I guess we'll finish it off there. So thanks for watching if you've made it this far, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. Thanks for watching. Sorry you didn't get to hear Noah sing the Muppet song.
Dude, I'm sorry too.
We'll get it on the next video.